Hi everybody, Alexine here, and I thought it was about time for another video. I have a couple of goals here. One is to talk a little bit about how to think about your analysis paper as you work on revising it. Then I am going to show you some excellent student writing. So first of all, I want to just think a little bit or talk a little bit about what you're doing when you're writing a paper. Because from what I remember about my writing class when I was in college, I was pretty sure that the whole point of writing a paper was to make me as stressed out and as miserable as possible. But that's actually not the goal when you're writing a paper. Think about writing a paper like meeting a person for the first time. You walk into the room, you meet a person, and you want to make a good impression, right? So the most important part of your paper in terms of making a good impression would be the beginning, when they first meet you, and the end, which is the last impression of you. So the first impression, the last impression, right? And that's why your introduction paragraph and your conclusion paragraph are both so important. The introduction is getting the reader's attention and kind of focusing them on you. And the conclusion is trying to think of a way to leave them with a final thought that stays in their mind, right? So there are two ways to think about how to organize a paper. The first one is for the visual learners, and it involves me trying to draw on the screen, which you can see I'm definitely not very good at. But I tried to draw paragraphs. And you'll see here that you want to indent your paragraph, so I drew a little indentation here. Remember that you use your tab key to indent. You don't want to hit the space bar over and over. And then, just like I said, you want a strong opening sentence because this is your first impression. This is going to shape how your reader sees you. And then for the middle part of the paragraph, which is what Elizabeth referred to as the background, you want to give the reader enough information about your topic, which is the technology you're writing about, that they can understand your thesis statement, okay? So I wrote, what do I need to know to understand your thesis? Introduce me to your topic, which is the technology that you are writing about. The last sentence of your introduction paragraph needs to be your thesis statement. And I'll talk a little bit more in just a minute about how to organize your thesis statement. But for now, you need to know that it is the last sentence of your introduction paragraph. Your thesis statement is going to make two appearances in your essay. It's going to be the last sentence of your introduction paragraph and the first sentence of your conclusion paragraph. Okay, I'll say that again. Last sentence of your intro paragraph, first sentence of your conclusion paragraph. And that's like where you're going to tell your reader, hey, this is where I'm going. And then in your conclusion paragraph, you say, here's where we were, or here's where I've gone, okay? So the middle paragraphs, and there are three of them, are your body paragraphs. I only made one body paragraph because I was not very good at drawing these shapes. So I just wrote repeat 2 more times, okay? But for all three of your body paragraphs, you need what's called a topic sentence. And the topic sentence tells the reader what the paragraph is going to do, which is prove your thesis, and also what your paragraph is going to be about, which is one of the three characteristics that you give in your thesis statement, okay? So again, you're going to indent your paragraph, topic sentence here, and then the rest of the paragraph needs to say focused on proving whatever it is that you said in your topic sentence. I want to say something generally about your thesis statement and your topic sentences. I sometimes think of writing as taking a trip on a highway, driving a car on a highway. And when you're driving your car on the highway, you don't want on the sign there to be like a whole lot of words. You just want a couple of words that you know, oh, I need to take this exit to go to the gas station, or my exit is in 25 miles. I don't want to see a whole lot of words. So your thesis statement and your topic sentence, I think of as signs by the highway. I want to look, get the information, keep going. The rest of the paragraph is where you explain more about what you're talking about, okay? So keep your thesis and your topic sentences short and sweet. Here's your conclusion paragraph. Repeat your thesis statement here. I might have forgotten what it is you're talking about because I'm all wrapped up in your writing, okay? And then you want to offer concluding thoughts. And the conclusion is the place where you leave your last impression. So often, the intro and the conclusion paragraphs are two of the hardest paragraphs to write because you really need to think about the impression you want to leave on your reader. Okay. So we're going to take a quick diversion away from your paper so that I can tell you a little bit about technology, because I think it's interesting to realize that for every new technology, people have freaked out. Okay, so in the same way that right now we're like a little freaked out about maybe the effect of the iPhone or the effect of computers or TikTok or whatever, back in ancient Greece, so we're talking like BC, right? In ancient Greece, there was a philosopher named Aristotle, and Aristotle was really upset about writing. Up until his time, people memorized things. They didn't write things down. So when people started writing things down, Aristotle thought, well, it's the end of the world as we know it. Because when people start writing things down, they're going to lose the ability to remember. And he also felt like once you write it down and send it off without you, it could be misunderstood. And so he was very, very concerned about writing. Can you imagine? Writing, like just writing on a piece of paper. Very upsetting. Later on, people decided or were worried, this is in England and America predominantly in the 1800s, people were really worried about ladies reading novels. Can you imagine? People were worried about novels. People were worried that if ladies read novels, their imagination might run away with them. They were worried that they might learn about sex, that they might start masturbating, that they might run off with some young man and get pregnant and therefore ruined, and that they might start having imagination. So novels, right? Novels. People were worried about what novels would do to the minds of ladies. Now, let's be clear that in America in particular, this was during the time when African Americans were not even permitted to learn to read and write. So this is a concern that was particularly about white women, and it was pretty silly. So, the railroad. When the railroad was invented, people were really scared that the speed at which a train could go, I mean, it could go up to 50 miles an hour. People were scared that the speed of the train would cause people to go crazy because their brains would bang around in their heads. They were worried that, again, women's uterus, which people believed kind of floated around in a woman's body, they were worried that the uterus would fall out of the woman. And they were also worried that potentially people would just melt from the speed of the train. Okay, now we don't think about trains at all, but at the time, the railroad was a source of a lot of anxiety. Okay, it was actually a condition called the railway spine, which was that your spine would be ruined by being on the railroad. And the last one, the printing press. The printing press came around in the 1600s, and people were very worried about the printing press because up until then, monks copied down Bibles by hand. And they were worried that monks wouldn't have anything to do, and that if monks didn't have anything to do, they might get into trouble. So as you can see, people have been worried about technology for as long as there's been technology. And I'm telling you all this, even though it's not useful, but so that you can start thinking a little critically about what we're worried about now, and maybe try to think in 100 years, in 200 years, what are people going to think about our fears? Okay, enough of that, Alexine. My goodness, I can go on. So I wanted to use this crazy railroad theory to talk to you about another way to think about how to organize your paragraph. And this is an outline version of your essay. So introduction, paragraph, and here, and I'll post this for you, but I want to notice it's the same structure. You want a strong first sentence. We call that the hook sometimes because it grabs the reader's attention. You want background information, and then here's my sample thesis statement, okay? Railroad trains are dangerous because they can cause madness, body melting, and women's uteruses to fly out of their bodies. So see that this is a thesis statement that has my argument, railroad trains are dangerous, and then gives 3 reasons: madness, melting, and flying uteruses, okay? And that's the analysis. I've broken down the problems with railroads into 3 parts. Here's a sample sentence for my first body paragraph. One reason why railroad trains are dangerous is because they cause madness. So notice how organized I'm being. My first body paragraph deals with my first reason in my thesis. Okay? The human brain is not designed to move through space so fast. It can get knocked around in the skull. And in fact, one man took off all his clothing and hung out of the window of the train, stark naked. Next body paragraph. And you can completely copy these topic sentences if you want. Just change the reason, of course. Additionally, railroad trains are dangerous because they can cause a person's body to melt. This is not true. People felt that the speed of a train would overwhelm the body and cause it to break apart and appear to melt. No one has seen it happen, but it could. Body paragraph 3. Finally, railroad trains can cause a woman's uterus to fly out of her body. This was during a period of time when people thought that a woman's uterus moved around in her body, and that wherever it moved, it would affect that part of the body. So people were worried that if the train moved really fast, it would fall out. I don't know, right? Okay. Finally, your conclusion paragraph. Here's my topic sentence. I'm repeating my thesis. As I have explained, riding railroad cars is extremely dangerous because it can cause madness, body melting, and women's uteruses to fly out of their bodies. Now I'm going to offer a final thought. I could propose a way to make railroads more safe. I could say trains should go slower, or there should be seatbelts, or we should go back to horses and carriages. I could also emphasize one of the reasons that I gave. I could say, look, if women's uteruses fall out of their bodies, they won't be able to have babies, and then we're really in trouble. Or you could connect the topic to a related topic. You could say, these concerns about railroad cars should alert us to the danger of these newfangled automobiles too, which is another technology people worried about. So I'm going to leave it here, and in the next video, sorry that there are two, but this was a lot to cover. In the next video, I'm going to talk a little bit about some really strong writing that I saw. So good luck with everything. Feel free to send me an email if you have a question, and I hope that this has been helpful.